Hello there. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be making a brined, pan-seared, bone-in pork chop. And I'm going to show you how to do it. And for your convenience, here's the ingredients. Pork chops. So you're in the mood for a steak, but you don't have the $15 or $20 or however much it costs for you to get the steak that you like. Well, bone-in pork chops are a pretty fair alternative. It's never going to be the same as a ribeye or a New York or a filet, but they do a good job of scratching that itch. And this is most often how I go about scratching that steak itch. It's not a difficult recipe. In fact, this is almost identical to my brine pork tenderloin video that I've done in the past, which if you're feeling spicy you could go watch, but I'll let you know right now, the audio in it is kind of garbage, so, grain of salt. But enough with all this banter, let's get into the prep. I've got myself a large saucepan with about 8 cups of water in it. All you need to do is add your salt. There's about 7 or 8 tablespoons here. Add a cup of dark brown sugar. Some pepper, rosemary, and thyme to really bring out some flavor. About 2 tablespoons of molasses. And some garlic, a little creamy horseradish, and some Worcestershire sauce. I can never say this. Go ahead and give it a little mix. Make sure everything's pretty well incorporated. And then once you've got it all pretty well mixed together, go ahead and get a spoon or something and give it a little taste and make sure that it's pretty salty. You want to make sure it has enough salt to get into the meat and for it to be similar to kind of what you'd expect seawater to taste like. Just a tiny little dab. Now the sea turtles are singing. So we're going to want to make sure that everything in here gets an opportunity to really shine. If you just put your pork in like it is now, the flavors haven't really melded and released, so you're not going to be getting the full potential of what this brine has to offer. So we need to heat it up and give it a chance to kind of hang out and all these seasonings to make friends. So let's head over to the oven. And all we need to do now is set our stove to about a medium-high heat and let it get pretty close to a boil. And we're going to mix it again real quick, just to make sure that none of the sugars are sitting on the bottom of the pan, because the last thing you want to do is scorch your sugar and burn it, and make this whole thing taste not very good. It's at a pretty nice boil now, so we're just going to go ahead and turn down the heat a little bit, and let it simmer like this for about 5 or 10 minutes. It's been about 7 minutes. That's about enough time for what we're trying to do here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take it off the heat, and I'll meet you back at the cutting board for what's next. So I dumped my brine through a fine mesh strainer into a stainless steel bowl to catch all the particulates and pieces of garlic and everything else in there because we're not going to need it, and I just tossed those out. And now that we've got a nice clean brine, I'm just going to cover it in aluminum foil and pop it in the freezer for about 30 minutes or an hour, or until it comes down to about room temperature. I also put my bowl in the freezer while I was simmering the brine, just to help cool it down a little faster. And I can do that because my bowl is stainless steel. If you're using glass or Pyrex or something, don't freeze it and then add hot liquid into it. It's going to shatter, or in some cases explode and send little glass shrapnel everywhere. And I would imagine that's probably not what you want in your kitchen. So unless you're using plastic or stainless steel or something like that, do not freeze your bowl beforehand. Alright, we've got ourselves some beautiful bone-in pork chops, if I do say so myself. They were on sale at the store. I got this whole pack for like $10. If ever there was a deal, that is it, I think. But I need a way to brine these so that they get completely covered in the brine. And I realized that bowl that I had my brine in is not going to be big enough for that. So instead, I'm going to use some gallon Ziploc bags. This bowl is just here to help stabilize the bag. But I'm going to take some of my pork chops and put them in the bag. Since I have 6, I'll do 3 per bag, I'm thinking. And then I'm just going to dump some of that brine in there with the pork chops. Give that a little seal. Try and get as much of the air out of there as I can. And then they're ready to go in the fridge. Do the same thing with the rest of these. Go ahead and add my brine to that. Making a bit of a mess here, but that's okay. I'm going to have to clean up this whole section anyway, just because there was raw pork around, and I'm not going to risk giving myself or anybody else food poisoning. We've got these pretty evenly distributed in the bag so that all of the pork is covered with that brine. Now all we have to do is put it in the fridge for about 3 or 4 hours, or overnight if you're feeling like it, and they'll be ready to sear in the pan. And I know what you're thinking. Truly, that is so much work just to make some bone-in pork chops. That's so much time. I understand. I understand that it's a lot of time to dedicate to something as simple as bone-in pork chops, but I promise you it is absolutely worth it. This recipe may be easy to make, but it's as easy to make as it is time consuming. But that time and love is truly what's going to give it the flavor that it deserves. So let's pop those in the fridge, and I'll meet you for the cook. And we're back. The pork's been brining for about 4 hours, which is usually the minimum I'll let it go. Again, you could let it go overnight if you want, if that's a little more convenient. Just do whatever makes you happy. So the next step is getting my pork out of the bags and onto some paper towels, and then just kind of patting them dry. Just gonna set these down here on my paper towels. And then you can just toss out whatever brine is left. So we'll just go ahead and give these just a little bit of a pat dry, nothing too crazy. You just want to get some of that excess moisture off, so when you put them in the pan, they actually have the opportunity to sear instead of just kind of boiling in these leftover juices. And now what we're going to need to do is hit them with a little salt and pepper. And then I'm going to pat that in just a little bit, make sure it sticks, then flip them over and do the other side. And there you go, they're patted off, they're seasoned, they're ready to get seared off in the pan, so I'll meet you over at the oven. And for this next step, all you're going to need is a large frying pan, some tongy boys, and a little vegetable oil, or a little bacon grease if you have it. Normally I do, but somehow right now I don't. We're going to turn our oven up to a medium high just to make sure that we get a nice sear on our pork chops. I'll go ahead and add a little vegetable oil to it, and then I'll just wait for it to heat up and shimmer. It's just when the oil gets hot enough that it looks a little wavy, and it means that the pan's at a high enough temperature we can get a good sear or a saute. I can see the shimmer, my pan's hot enough. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple pork chops. And these are going to take about 3 to 5 minutes aside, just keep an eye on them. Alright, I'll meet you back at the cutting board. So my chops are ready to go, but this time I think I want a little dipping sauce for them. So in a little dish, I'm going to add a little bit of mayonnaise, or a lot of bit of mayonnaise, however you want to look at it. A little bit of creamy horseradish, some Dijon mustard, and a little bit of the W sauce. And I'm going to give all that a little whisk. I love that joke. I'm never going to stop making that. I hope you guys like it too, because I'm not stopping. And there you have it. It might have taken all day or into the next day, but I can assure you they're pretty darn good. So you might want to give them a try. And as I always say, if it's bad for the heart, it's good for the soul. I'll see you in the next one.